Yes, folks, hello, welcome to MoDXtra Games and Collectibles. I'm Chris, otherwise known online as the True Mr. Six. Find me on Insta, find me on Twitter, all that good stuff. And I'm back again today with another action figure review for you to consume and enjoy. And as you can see, I'm sticking with my favourite at the minute, G.I. Joe Classified series. We've got General Clayton, Hawk, Abernathy to go through. So yeah, you can go make yourself a lovely hot drink, sit back, relax. You're going to get the thorough ins and outs, ups and downs about General Clayton Hawk Abernathy, or from this point forward, I shall refer to as only Hawk. So yeah, stick around. I'm going to go through all the good stuff that you want to know if you're thinking about picking up a Hawk of your own. Going to talk about the visual experience and the aesthetic qualities of the figure. Going to talk about the posability and the articulation, and then give you a lovely little walkthrough of all the accessories and added value that Hasbro have chucked in for us. But before I do, stick around because I'm going to share with you the unboxing I did on the day that Hawk arrived and give you my first instinctual reaction to the packaging and the figure itself. So let's travel back in time together now. Doodaloo, doodaloo, doodaloo. All right then, folks, here we go. Here is General Clayton Hawk Abernathy in the packet. Arrived just today. Very excited to get this bad boy opened up. Edging ever closer to windowed packaging, but still windowless at this point now. So we've got the digital render as the main feature on the front of the packet. I know that this has caught a few people's eye, actually, because there's some interesting stuff going on in the background here, like the Cobra Stun and the Triple T and the little jetpack trooper in the background there. It's got G.I. Joe the movie vibes to me, actually, but a nice dynamic action shot of the General, taking out some Cobras. Then the painted artwork along the right-hand side of the packet and the breakaway corner with some of the added value and extras being shown off, and then the black kind of motif with the G.I. Joe Classified Series logo at the bottom. The General is number 103 in the line. We've got the digital render with the measuring stick at the side here telling us he's 6.3 inches tall. The extra added value bits and bobs being shown off again in the digital render. Then some breakaway windows with some key features being pointed out, the helmet, the outside of the helmet goggles, and the paint application little Yojo badge on his shoulder there. Import sticker, legal bollocks and malarkey, and then of course the data card, slightly obscured by the import sticker there, but you can see we've got this little circle with the 5 stars in it. This is of course indicating that General Hawk is a massive fan of the 1983 pop group 5 Star, particularly interested in Delroy's moves. He was a big fan of Delroy in the group and used to watch, Top of the Pops and copy Delroy and learn his dance moves. It was part of his workout regimen. Then we've got this little pile of wood here. So General Hawk, he doesn't like to work out in the traditional sense of going down to the gym or, lifting weights. He either dances to 5 Star music or he goes out into the yard and chops some wood. Nice non-traditional workout there to spend some time on the chest and the arms, you know what I mean? He's a bit of a lumberjack on the side. Then we've got this little cannon here. General Hawk is a bit of a historian on the side. This is what he likes to do at the weekend. He reads up about the Napoleonic Wars and the War of the Coalitions and studies the weaponry and the technological improvements that Napoleon introduced. So that's what that's indicating. And then that leads us neatly to the little chess piece here, because this is reflective of how General Hawk brings that hobby to life even further by painting and playing tabletop war games with 28mm Napoleonic soldiers. In fact, I'm pretty confident he's just recently finished painting up his Holy Roman Empire army. So there we go. Not only is General Hawk an educated man, but this video is also topical. That's for you, Ridley Scott. Wow, it's gone really dark on this side. We've got the large painted artwork on the side. Really appreciating that this has been very consistent lately. Very similar tone and expression to the painted artwork. And again, this is a lovely dynamic action shot. Then on the other side, we've got the QR code, got the blue sepia version of the artwork and the miniature data card that no one can read. I've not checked that in a while. Let's have a quick peek. Here we go. Open QR code. Oh, Transformers, bots. Okay, a little bit more of interest, I suppose, ish to the adult collector. All right, let's get this bad boy open then. I've popped the tape at the bottom, so I'll undo that, and we'll have the weapons locker and the figure in the tray, I should imagine. Yeah, there's the weapons locker. 103, General Clayton Hawk Abernathy, that's standard, and then the figure in the cardboard frame. Oh, it's popped loose at the top there, look. All right, let's get going with the weapons locker then. So pop that open there. Oh, paperwork. Take out the little baggie with all the goodies in it. It's like a paper version of, a storage bag that you might keep some recreational materials in. Tear open at the top there. Tip all the bits out. Here we go. So we've got his signature helmet, his big pistol, his slightly littler pistol, his shotgun there. Grenade launcher, is that? Grenade launcher. And then the two versions of the goggles, one for over helmet, one for under helmet. And there we go, pop the tie wraps off. Let's get General Hawk out. Oh, he's got a bit stuck in his arm there. There we go. There's the artwork again at the back of the cardboard frame. Right, here we go then, folks. So here is the General with all his goodies. As usual, I'm going to go away and get some good, solid man-child playtime in with this figure. Get good and hands-on to gather some solid review thoughts to share with you guys. So I'll take some pictures. I'll get him in display. Might even go in the garden, get in the frost, and do a little battle in the snow with some Arctic bats or something. But Future Chris is going to be back in a couple of days after that's taken place to share those review thoughts. So stick around. I'll be with you in 3, 2, 1. Okay then, folks. Well, here he is then. Here's General Hawk as he came out of the cardboard frame. Although I've been playing around with him for a couple of days. I hope you enjoyed seeing the unboxing, but it's time to talk about the aesthetic now. And overall, he has a great visual aesthetic experience, although it is a bit rough around the edges upon closer inspection, and there's a few things I want to point out as I go through the review. But to begin with, the first thing that's particularly obvious is that they've drawn inspiration, Lenny and his team have drawn inspiration from the version 2 vintage edition of the Hawk character. You know, he's got the dark hair, it's the leather jacket and the camo pants, not the blonde-haired first version, you know, the OG version. Which is fine, actually. You know, as far as I'm concerned, this is kind of what my nostalgic memory attaches to General Hawk. I'm pretty sure in the Action Force comics he appeared in the leather jacket. I'd have to go back and check. Although, funnily enough, little random side tangent, for the Action Force comics, you know, the reskin of G.I. Joe that we had over here in the UK, the G.I. Joes were led by a guy called Commander Trent. Oh my God, I'm testing my childhood memory here. Commander Trent, and he was like the head of European operations, and he used to speak to Hawk, who was the head of the US wing of G.I. Joe, and then various things happened, and we saw more of Hawk later down the line. But yeah, this is the visual image that I most readily associate with General Hawk. The blonde-haired version 1 version is not what my mind's eye immediately goes to, which makes for a uniquely looking but uniform-looking version of the character that kind of fits in the G.I. Joe display well in terms of colour scheme, but he's got his own unique features to give him his own shelf presence, which I think is really cool. So regular viewers around these parts will know that one of the main features that attract me to G.I. Joe Classified series, other than the nostalgia, of course, is the quality of the head sculpts, and I freaking love this head sculpt. This one is tremendous. Look at it. They really nailed General Hawk there. I'm very, very happy with the head sculpt on this guy. He's got that aged soldier, wise, grizzly, old fella thing going on, the little streaks of grey in his hair. He's just a little bit more weathered, you know, a little bit more wrinkly than some of the others. The definition on the facial features as well is really good. I mean, look at his, you know, his chiseled chin and the cheeks and the nose and the furrows on the brow. Paint applications really neatly applied, and there's a little bit of something more going on in there than just kind of vanilla stare. You can kind of just see very subtly in the facial features. We've got some serious tactical and strategic thinking going on as he surveys what's in front of him, and I'm really enjoying the head sculpt on this guy very much. So much so, actually, I've posed him a few times without the helmet on, which I think is an interesting aspect to this figure, that I've enjoyed the head sculpt so much, particularly with the hairdo, that I've gone without the helmet. The leather jacket is also obviously a key feature of the General Hawk visual identity, and they've done a pretty good job on it. There's some lovely fine detail touches in there. You've got his insignias and his ranking and his name tag on there. We've got the paint application across the sheepskin fur collar, although that is a little bit loosey-goosey and slapdash applied. You can see if I peel back the holster strap there, I've got a little bit of paint app spillage, and it's just a bit sloppy around the edges, but it's there. Got the stars on the collar of his shirt. Got the stars and stripes there on his left arm, top of his left arm. Got a Yo-Jo insignia there at the top of his right arm. So yeah, and lots of nice little detailed touches, paint applications applied to it all as well to make it stand out with a nice splash of colour. The zips are painted in a kind of brassy colour and everything, so that's all nice to see. I'm not so sure about the design choice here where the jacket meets the trousers. I'm not sure what else they would have done, but it does have a bit of a look and a feel like he's tucking his coat into his pants, which I'm not sure about. But then I'm also pleased that they've not done one of those weird coat sleevey, skirty flap things that they do when the jacket comes over the top. So I'm not too sure. This belt here is quite loose, so I've kind of just pushed it up a bit to sort of disguise the fact it looks like his coat's being tucked into his trousers, because he's an old fella, but he's not one of them old fellas, you know what I mean? But while I'm down here, you can see we got paint applications applied on the belt too. I'm always a big fan of when they put paint applications on the buckles and things, just to give it a little bit of depth and a little bit of texture. While I'm on texture, the leathery look of the coat's really good as well. You can see the knocks and scrapes. There's a wash over there to give it a kind of worn leather look and feel, and all the creases and folds are really nicely sculpted into, which is lovely. One visual criticism I've got is here on the hands. Look at that gap there where the peg meets the wrist. So upon further inspection and fiddling around with it a bit, it turns out that the channel inside the arm here to hold the peg is shorter, is shallower than the peg on the hand itself. So it kind of sticks out a little bit there. I'll have to do a little bit of remedial action on that. I've obviously not done it yet because I wanted him in the out the packet state for the review. But as someone who doesn't watch other people's reviews until I've done my own, I don't know whether that's unique to mine or whether that's something others have come across. I'll go away and investigate that, but if anyone wants to let me know in the comments down below. But while I'm talking about joints as well, you can see the top of the arms and the thighs are a little bit gappy as well. A little bit annoying, and his articulation points can be a little bit tricky. This one in particular, when you try and go to bend the leg back, you can see you get quite a bit of clearance there, so that's not great. And the texture detail that we've seen, on the coat and whatnot is continued throughout the figure. We've got the fabric texture detail in the trousers. The boots look suitably military issue and shiny and leathery, and got the sculpted detail in all the laces. Got his knee pads. His gun holster looks nice and leathery too. The elasticated bits on the sleeves and on the waist of his leather coat, nicely sculpted and look like they are elasticated, parts of his uniform. So it's all fine and dandy on that front. One thing that does stand out to me, so Hawk's got this new pegged-in joint. This I have caught wind on around the socials, which is fine. I'll talk about it with regards to articulation in a second, but you'll notice that this little kind of shouldery flap here to disguise the brakes is really loose and wobbly, but then on the other side is quite tight and well packed in to the coat. So it can be a little bit of a frustration because as it sort of falls out, it's kind of a very shiny, plasticky sheen next to this wonderfully leathery, beaten look. And the looseness is a little bit frustrating as well. So there is one other thing about the hands, actually, that I want to talk about. But hang fire, it'll come up later on in the video. I'll swing back around to the hands for some further exploration when I come to do the accessories. But in summary, as far as the aesthetic experience goes and the visual experience of the figure, it's a thumbs up on the head sculpt alone. I really love this head sculpt. It's awesome. And I'm very appreciative of that classic kind of vintage version 2 aesthetic with the modern classified twist on it. And so I like the interpretation. It's just a shame that there's just a few bits here and there that are a little loose around the edges, which is seems to be a common theme with G.I. Joe classified series reviews at the minute. It's awesome, but there's a few quirks here and there that might niggle and frustrate if that's your thing. I've always said that as someone who reviews the figures, I perhaps inspect them even more closely than anyone would normally, because on the shelf, yeah, he's definitely got that I'm in charge general vibe about him. No two ways about it. So it's definitely a thumbs up if you can forgive or correct some of the bits like the wrists. So there you go. Right, let's move on and talk about articulation now, shall we? Then moving down into the body, we've got this new shoulder joint. Well, newish. We've seen this before. It was on Snow Job and someone else. I'm looking over at the shelf for inspiration, but I can't remember. But this is interesting. So it's a pegged-in joint with this little cover section here. So it offers some stuff that the butterfly joint doesn't, but then restricts in other ways, because it gives a much better kind of rotation in the joint there like that, but it doesn't give as good a cross-body motion, which I think I prefer. I think I prefer the butterfly joint for, the holding of rifles and things across the body. But that's an interesting choice. I'd be curious to know why they made that design choice, whether it was something to do with the aesthetic on the jacket and the style up here. because I'll talk about that diaphragm cut in a minute. But yeah, that's the new shoulder joint they're putting on the General there. But you've got the full 360 and the T-shape up to about there. Swivel at the top of the bicep and tricep. My hand's in the way, but hopefully you can see that. Pinless double elbow that'll get you up to there. Then the pegged in hands that I mentioned before, which give you a swivel at the wrist joint, and then both of them have got up and down hinges. Then down into the torso, we've got this straight line diaphragm cut across the middle there. I've mentioned before on these reviews, I like that in terms of what it offers us aesthetically. I think it looks much neater and a more seamless cut to the jacket, but it restricts your crunch forward and your crunch back a great deal. What it does do, though, is give us a little bit more swivel space at the top there, like so. Then down into the waist, it's the standard ball at the waist there, which traditionally offers a bit of swivel at that point, but mine's a bit springy. I've got, it's not too bad that way, but it's a bit springy that way. It's like one of those old Punch action figures you used to get back in the day. Moving further down, it's the standard G.I. Joe Classified Series drop-down joint in the groin, giving us really decent forward. Hawk's got some decent Russian ballet splits there as well, although that whole strut there gets in the way of this leg on this side. Got a thigh cut swivel there at the top of the thigh. Pinless double knee, that'll get you up to there. Swivel there at the top of the boot. And then the hinge and rocker at the ankle, giving us a good range of motion there. So Hawk's articulation is solid. I'm still going to give it a thumbs up as far as reviewing this part of the figure experience. There has been some compromises made, I think, for aesthetic reasons when it comes to the shoulder and the diaphragm cut. And again, a few little rough around the edges QC issues when it comes to the springiness of the waist, the gaps in the wrists. There's been some tightness in there as well, but I've kind of stopped bringing that up because I just assume that now. But it's all right, and it's far better than, put that next to a Black Series. You'll be able to do a lot more with it. So I've been happy with it. And I've got to admit, he is kind of a character that I kind of pose up and then place on the shelf, and then that's it. He's not someone I play with a great deal, if that makes sense. So he's fit for purpose. It's good enough. It's good enough. Okay, folks, accessory time now then. Let's get started with the weapon selection. Here's pistol number 1 that comes with General Hawk. It's a nice chunky piece of pistol gear. It's got some sculpted detail in there. You can see the little star on the hilt. Is this reuse? I think, is this the same as CoverGirl's pistol? I'll double check later, but nonetheless, it's all right. I'm a little bit disappointed that they've gone with this kind of more modern aesthetic pistol. I'd have thought they'd have gone with something a little bit more classic military issue, like the Colt they gave Spirit. Is it 1911 or 1911? I don't know the lingo, but yeah, so they're going with a more modern look kind of pistol here, but it still looks decent in his hand. It's a fair enough piece of kit. I like it well enough, and this can be stored on the figure as well. Hawk's got himself a hip holster here that this one slides into, like so. Then we have a secondary pistol here, which is more like a kind of smaller, shorter, snubbier 9mm type thing. Again, single piece of plastic, quite firm, not as rubbery as we've experienced. Little extended magazine on there. Fine. Again, got the sculpted detail. It looks decent enough in his hand. No complaints on that one. It's just a straightforward little pistol piece. This one also has storage on the figure with the cross chest holster. Just slips in there, like so. Then into his larger arms, we've got the shotgun here. This is definitely reused from CoverGirl, but without the paint applications on it. Once again, not a great deal to say here. It's a bit wobbly, but not as egregious as we've experienced with some other figures of late. It's got some decent sculpted detail. It's a shotgun, it's fine. Now, this doesn't have any on-figure storage, and this is the point, I think, where I'll talk about the hands, because they made a very interesting design choice with the hands. So rather than being a trigger finger hand, they've gone with this grippy hand thing that came with the twins, with the Crimson Twins, Tomax and Zaymot, which means the whole kind of putting the gun in and around the trigger is just a bit odd and not as sound a fit as you would get with the more traditional G.I. Joe Classified Series trigger hands. So really interesting decision there. Not sure what the inspiration for that is, especially when they've accessorized the figure with a bucket ton of pistols and rifles and the grenade launcher I'm about to show you. I'm not sure what that's all about. Is it something to do with the black hands? Surely they've got a black gloved hand in a trigger finger they can use. But yeah, it just seems like an odd choice. Can you see how it just sort of sits a little slightly more uncomfortably than it would in the trigger finger? So Really interesting design choice there. And then we have the grenade launcher, more reuse. This was Gung Ho, I think, came with this one. And again, it's a single piece of black molded plastic. Got some sculpted details in there. That one's pretty firm, nowhere near as rubbery as we've experienced. Got the shoulder strap on there. It's fine, it's okay. It's a grenade launcher. And it goes in his hand and he shoots grenades with it. I've got no complaints. I've used this one for a few little kind of poses that I took photos of the other day. It's all good and dandy. And then we've got the helmet here, the classic military issue, M1 style military green combat helmet there with the general star on the front. It's a slightly lighter colour green than the combat trousers, but that's kind of all right. It's okay. But yeah, the paint application on the military style there is in that rubbery kind of stuff that they've been doing the helmets in. And it's a bit more flexible than some of the others. Like I seem to remember bazookas being a lot firmer. But some nice touches here. You can see some sculpted details there where we've had some, we had some debris or shrapnel or even bullets ricocheting off the front there and leaving some dents and things, which is a nice touch. Got the straps sort of dangling down. And it's a decent fit on his head. Just, slides on like so. No probs at all. Now, the helmet, it looks fine enough as it is, but then we do also have two sets of goggles there. One that's got a smaller diameter on it for helmetless wear, and one with a larger diameter on it so it can be wrapped around the helmet. Now, these ones here, the ones that just go around his head without the helmet, are okay. They're a bit of a faff and a fidget to, get him over the front of his face and then just like well lined up with his nose. And if you've sort of made your shot from the back there a little bit off, then it looks a bit squiffy across his nose there. And I'll be frank, I've used them a sum total of twice. Once when it first came out of the box and just now. So there we go. The set that goes around the helmet really adds to the kind of the visual experience. There we go. Now, obviously, the old V2 vintage figure that I mentioned before as the inspiration for this one, but at least I strongly believe that's the case. He had his goggles across the top of his helmet. It just breaks up the big patch of green there to give it a bit of symmetry and balance in terms of the aesthetic visual experience. And it's solid. It's a good-looking accessory that contributes to that visual identity of the figure and to the character as we know him. If there was one criticism of the helmet, I would just say that these straps can be a little bit fussy around the collar, the way they drape down. So if you have to sort of tuck them in, because if you leave them on the outside there, it sort of pulls the helmet in the wrong direction. So I've been making sure that I tuck the cords, the straps, the chin straps down on the inside of his sheepskin collar there. So the accessory selection is all right. I'm giving it a thumbs up. There's, they've chucked in loads of stuff there to help us out. I'm just not sure it contributes to the storytelling that you want to do with this character in particular. Like the shotgun, the grenade launcher. Honestly, the shotgun I gave to Shockwave. I've been having him bear that piece of weaponry on the shelf for the last couple of days. I'm quite happy just to tool up General Hulk with one of the pistols. And I'm not entirely sure what else I would have wanted. I think General Hulk would have been more appropriate to have like a general's baton and a radio, some sort of communication device, maybe a map. I don't know. But on the flip side of that, I do like the storytelling piece where he's a general who leads from the front. He's not a general who leads from the back. So he's got, grenade launcher for long range combat, shotgun and pistols for getting up close and personal. He's got the goggles, got the helmet, not afraid to jump out of a plane with his chute, So there is that side of things too. I'm just not sure. It's just a load of reuse weaponry. And then the pistols, I'd much rather the more kind of classic military issue style, Colt 1911 with him. So while I'm happy to have all the added value and all these extras, I'm probably only ever going to pose him up in the helmet and with one of the pistols. So it's an interesting one, that. But let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are on that. Are you happy to tool up your Hawk? Is there some sort of general's piece of military equipment that might have been an appropriate accessory to have with him? Just let me know. I'm open to discussion. But I'm happy to have the stuff. I'm just... it's not quite lining up to the type of storytelling I want to do with the character. So there we go. So folks, here we go. Final thoughts time. Take a good look at General Hulk going around here on the turntable. As you can see, I've put him in the pose that I had him on the shelf I kind of settled on last night, which is without all the extra gubbins, just a pistol and his helmet and in the thick of the action. You know, that's just how I like to envision the character. That's the storytelling I'm doing with this figure. And overall, I'm happy with him. I like him, but I'd be remiss not to point out that as I played with him over the last couple of days, these little kind of rough around the edges bits that were slightly off the mark contributed to some increasing levels of disappointment with the figure, which is a shame because, you know, General Hawk was on my wish list last year. I was so excited to see him announced and for us to get a release. I've got very fond memories of General Hawk from the first time I ever saw an animated, you know, G.I. Joe was G.I. Joe the movie. When that came out over here in the United Kingdom, folks, I'd only ever read in the comics, and this is how he looked, and he was, obviously a featured character in that, and I was so excited, and getting him in hand, he's just not quite there, which is such a shame because, you know, overall, actually, he looks good. I suppose I'm just judging it by comparable usual G.I. Joe Classified series standards. It's just those little funny things. I'm like, why choose those hands? You know, why? It makes no sense to me. What's the point of this new pegged-in shoulder? I don't get it. If you're going to give him a shotgun, then I need a butterfly joint so I can get it nicely held in both hands and stuff. It's all a bit odd, and then just, you know, there's little articulation bits and anyway, I'm not going to bang on about it. I pointed out through the course of the video because it is a recommends. You know, I do recommend the figure, definitely. He looks great on the shelf. He does look great on the shelf, and he fits in really well with the other G.I. Joes. I think perhaps my expectations were higher than they should have been and could have been compared to, you know, the final delivery of the fig, which is kind of fine. I need to have a word with myself about that more than anything else. So there we go. Okay, well, folks, if you found this review useful, if it's contributed to helping you make your purchase decision, you know, if you're thinking about getting a Hawk of your own, then it's my sincerest hope that I've helped you make your mind up. And so if that is the case, then hit the like, subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, and please come back for more, you know, man-child, collectibles, and action figures and games stuff. We do a lot of action figures at the minute, but trading cards, comic books, you name it. If you're a big man-child nerd like me who worships at the broad church of nerddom, then this is quite possibly the channel for you. Otherwise, all that remains to say is thank you so very much for choosing me out of the multitude of YouTube videos you could watch about General Hawk, and I hope you have a really tremendous day. And look at that! That was textbook, folks. That's how you do a finish with your character facing forward.